Good. We're good.
We're good. We're good. Mm-hmm. We're good. Emma says we're good. So, hey, welcome back to the Sustainiacs. It is 2023. We have, well, obviously Emma's there. I'm Mike Vincent. We're the Sustainiacs. We've got Mike Moren from ICPG, which is like Impact Package Group, I think is
I was going to ask, what does it stand for?
Impact Consumer Products Group.
Ah, there we go. Excellent. Before we jump into this, Mike, let me ask you this question because it's always interesting to me this time of year. How long is it okay to say Happy New Year into the new year?
Until January 31st.
Oh, first you give them a month.
I give them a month.
Do you take advantage of that month, or it's just acceptable to you to hear it from someone?
I take advantage of that month because we actually do work with people in Asia, in South America. So we're always on different schedules, and culturally, I think January is the beginning of the year anyway. You might as well wish people a Happy New Year.
Yeah.
I get it. I kind of. How about you, Emma? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I like that. I feel like it's like first week for me. I mean, I feel like I see the same people though over and over, so it's kind of like.
So that's a good. That's a good. If you see them over and over first week, that's it. You don't say it twice to somebody.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
But I think in business, I'm with you, Mike. The first month is acceptable. It's first. If I see somebody for the first time this year on like January 20th in business, I would say Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Most likely, I think it's a fair game. It's fair. Yeah. I think it's fair game. I think it's fair game.
For sure.
Cool. So hey, Mike is with ICPG. Impact Consumer Packaging Group, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff and simplification and material replacement and how that impacts recyclability in, I guess, you guys lean towards almost exclusively food packaging, right?
Yeah, food packaging, pharmaceuticals, medical. So my division, we've got a legacy division, Impact Plastics, and they do a lot of consumer products and medical packaging.
Yeah.
And my group is food, but we also veer into pharmaceuticals and into some medical devices as well.
So I saw in there. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just like real quick before we get too deep into it. Like, what would be the elevator pitch for ICPG? Like, what would you find someone in an elevator? You have 30 seconds, 2 minutes to make your case for your company. What would you say that you do?
So ICPG is a solution provider for packaging companies. We focus on thermoforming and form, fill, seal applications for food products, both shelf stable and refrigerated dairy applications, as well as some specialty niche things like pharmaceuticals. We're really just trying to solve problems and sell packaging.
So recyclability problems with these, or just problems in general?
Well, I think most of what's concerning the packaging world is sustainability and recyclability. So the answer is yes to both, but not intentionally. If somebody had a problem that needed solving, I don't care if it's a sustainability problem or not. It just so happens that's the most concerning problem today for packaging.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's developed over the years. You came in saying, okay, we're going to package food. Now I have pudding, which is different than cookies. Therefore, I need to package it differently. Mike, help me out here. How do we do this?
Oh, exactly. Right? Exactly.
Temperature control, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. I noticed on your website, you guys do, it specifically says marijuana and CBD, right? So they're like separate, right? So how new is that, and how extensive does that go? Is that something big? I've been in logistics, and I met guys that started out like 5 years ago with one like little dispensary and I'm talking about like recreational marijuana, right?
Sure.
In California, one guy, he started out with one of those. Now he's got all the rights to Oregon, California, Nevada, and Arizona. Wow. His company's worth like several $1 billion, right? Because of all this type of stuff. It's a huge industry coming forward, right?
It really is. It's probably the fastest growing segment in packaging right now. It's an amazing business, but it's really complex because it's not federally regulated right now. There's there's 50 different agencies, 50 states that are regulating. So you've got so much diversity in need, and so much. Well, it's kind of chaotic, and it's really calling out for an industry leader or a group of leaders to demand that there's some regulation, some standardization of needs, and it's a really interesting place for us to be, because nobody knows what they're doing from a packaging standpoint.
Yeah, one of his difficulties was, even though all those states, he owns the distribution rights and everything in all those states, he can't cross the lines because it's not federally regulated, so he can't ship a product from one state to another state. He also very few banks, so most of his like $1 billion top line is done through cash.
Totally, completely.
Because you can't put it in a bank.
Right. There's no federal banking allowed. And that means credit card companies won't process transactions. It's kind of, for as fast a growing industry as it is, it's amazing how disconnected it is with the rest of the business world.
Yeah. So let's jump into this a bit, Mike. We talked to a company that does exclusively like end cap displays and some packaging a little bit. They're called Bay Cities. It's all cardboard type of stuff, not even in plastics type of stuff. Very interesting. They do a good job of recycling and stuff like that. But why is it in packaging industry that it is so difficult to, and specifically food, I guess, really what you guys are in? Why is it so hard to have a good, solid recycling program?
So it's that balance between function and the ability to create a market or a value with that recycled material. There's lots of different overly complex materials that function really well in terms of protecting products or easily being processed through the packaging process. But they're not really valuable to the recycler. It takes more money or more cost to recycle those materials than they can achieve from reprocessing and selling that recycled material. So one of the things that we're always trying to do is, as you mentioned, simplification, because simple is lower cost for the recyclers. We need to allow them to make a profit, to create a market so that there is value in recycling. And so society benefits more from the increase in recycled materials.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I always think of like, I guess I'm just sitting here thinking about like a milk carton, for example. Like it has to be a certain thickness. So, right, like the liquid, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like it has to be a certain thickness, a certain plastic coating on the inside to make sure it doesn't get out. But then at that point, to actually recycle that would have to do with unpeeling all those layers. And at that point, it's just like too much time and energy wasted to try and recycle this product. But it needs to be that way for food safety. Is that kind of what you're going?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to think about, is the product protected on its way to the retail store? Is it protected on its way to the consumer? Is it protected from the transportation process? All those things need to happen. And for milk, for instance, you got to protect temperature. You got to protect UV light, because light degrades the nutritional value of milk. And at the same time, if you want to recycle those milk cartons or jugs, it's got to be in a format that the recycler can strip away those different components and make something of value to provide to other processors, whether it's other packaging processors or other product processors.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like the material is only as good as what can be made from it, right? Like it's great if you're recycling, but if nothing's being made from it, like what's?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting.
Well, you're not really recycling, right? At that point, if you can't. Yeah. So, but plastic bags, I've always heard, are like impossible to recycle. Do you get into plastic bag like foils?
Yeah,
Not plastic bag, but foils. Do you
we
guys get
really
into?
don't. We don't get into the flexible side of things. Our products are more rigid; they're thicker. But from what I understand about that marketplace, they're actually recyclable. I know in Europe, flexibles are recycled on a much greater scale than they are in the United States. Again, it's a cost. In my opinion, it's a cost benefit scenario. It's less costly to throw those plastic bags out. We're blessed with a lot of space, which
Mm,
unfortunately translates to landfill space. And
mm,
because it costs less to transport those plastic bags to a landfill, that's what's being done. It costs less than recycling those bags. So we've not built the infrastructure necessary to do that, where in other parts of the world that infrastructure exists and it makes sense to recycle plastic bags. We're capable of doing those things. Is there a financial incentive to doing it? Has it been have things been designed for recyclability? Probably not as well as they should be. So
I see a cat back there.
I
I
do
know.
too.
I'm sorry. She's like
She
sneaking.
still got her cone of shame on.
So she's
Yeah,
like crazy
little
girl.
plastic cone of shame. Maybe it's
Tried to get her a fabric one and she just slipped right out. So it's all we can
Oh
do.
man.
Sorry.
Man, I thought the new year was going to bring her freedom.
She actually was free for like 5 days and then she like couldn't leave herself alone and we had to put her back up.
Oh boy,
Like
that's
2.5 months. I feel terrible for her.
so. Let me ask you this, Mike. I contend that a major problem with what you just talked about is, like you said, infrastructure is more. We don't have the logistical infrastructure and the participation to be able to do these things in a economically viable way. Whereas in other countries, they have, because we've been able to kind of deal with it in a lazy manner, ship it off to India or China stuff. Do you agree with that?
or bury the problem, right?
Or bury the problem? Yeah,
Literally bury the problem.
yeah. I got you. So, as far as recycled materials in your world, can you use recycled materials back into your products? And do you do that? Or are you simply looking at ways so that it can be recycled into other products?
So
In
the
other words,
answer
you,
the
go
answer
ahead.
is both. We use recycled material all the time. In fact, we generate a tremendous amount in our process of our own material that goes back into our products. So
So you're like waste scraps and stuff. Your waste scraps and stuff like that go back into the process, right?
yes, but we
Yeah.
also buy back our
Oh,
customers' waste, their internal scrap, and we incorporate that into products as well. And if it was available, right now it's very difficult to get recycled plastic from packaging.
right.
But if it was available, we'd be able to incorporate it into a whole series of products. It's definitely something that we're geared up to do. I'm not sure that the market or the recyclers are quite as advanced as we would like them to be. We want more of the recycled content.
So let me ask you this: you always hear, or you don't always hear. I always hear. The general public probably doesn't always hear, but I do, because, and so does Emma, because we're kind of in this space now. Is that recycling a plastic material that was used for packaging of food products, recycling that and then using it again for food products, or any recycled plastic that is going to touch and contain food products, is a no, can't be done.
No,
Is that true, false? What's up?
it's false. It's done all the time. It's If you think about PET water bottles,
Mm-hmm.
they are recycled and returned to companies like mine, where we will use the post-consumer flake in packaging materials that then go to thermoformers to be reprocessed into thermoform packaging, like clamshells and trays and cups and lids. It happens all the time. There are materials that are overly complex, that they just cannot be returned to packaging. They have to be utilized for park benches or construction materials.
Yeah. Long-term locked-in products, right? Like jersey
right,
barriers, that type of stuff. Right. Gotcha.
exactly. But I mean, while that is recycling and it is circular in its essence, it's not exactly what the public expects. It's not really
Yeah.
what the industry wants. So again, that simplified solution to, hopefully I don't sound too much like a salesman here, but the
No.
simplified solution makes it possible to recycle complex materials in a packaging format.
Yeah, don't worry about sounding too much like a salesman. We're here to get this out to the public so people understand
Understood.
what the efforts are. And one of the devils, the big devils out there that's killing our planet and polluting the oceans are ICPG. You guys you guys make plastic food containers. Therefore, you must be the devil, and we're trying to dispel those myths
I
so that
appreciate
people understand what is actually going on.
And it's interesting the circularity of it. I'm really drawn into that. Like how you said that you are able to, you guys are coming up with these packaging that that product is going to be able to be recycled in the long run. You're not just saying, well, we'll recycle any material that comes our way, but we're going to keep doing our thing with whatever we produce out there. Like it's so interesting to me how you can create a product using a plastic that will come back around. And I think that that's a really cool concept that maybe not a lot of people are sure about. Like, yes, you can make something recyclable 1,000 times, but going back to what we said earlier, if it's not being used in something else, it's kind of like, okay, great. Like, but to have it then being used in another product, I find that really, really intriguing.
Yeah, I think for us, design for recyclability is absolutely a tenet of how we run our business.
Yeah.
And I do hear critics often say, "Well, you can't recycle something forever. It can't. There is an end of life." And I always reply with, "So what? If we turn something that's getting thrown away or put into a landfill or shipped off to India, as you said, into something that gets used 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times in other formats, I think we're so far ahead of where we are today.
That many more times than it would have been before.
Yeah, it won't be 1,000 times, but it could be 12 times. And 12 times is 12 times better than what we have today.
Well, yeah, I mean, even at the very worst, kicking the can down the road far enough that our grandchildren figure this out or figure out how to complete is what we need right now. Anyways, can't give up just because it's not the perfect solution. It can't, right? You got to move forward. What some of the impacts of the current packaging materials? I mean, there's real world impacts. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what those are. I have one for you that I just read the other day. It's a city in India is actually their like respiratory disease rate is like huge because they have a paper mill there that uses cardboard and paper coming over from the United States, right? That is supposed to be all just plastic or all just paper and cardboard. And when they're getting it there, it's filled with like Amazon packaging, which is like paper on the outside, craft paper on the outside, and plastic on the inside. Sure. And they were actually showing this stuff. There's like plastic baby coach wheels and all this stuff inside, and even bottles and all this stuff that once they get it, they have to just burn it because they have nothing else to do. And it's the efforts of recycling is actually causing a bad system there, which is obviously an impact of packaging and other type of stuff. But
you're talking about sort of what I would guess are materials that, again, are multi-layer, overly complex, that were designed to do something and probably function very well in their primary chore or task, but they weren't designed for recyclability or end of life or circularity. And I think that's so dangerous. Because, as you said, one of the only reliable ways to get rid of something is to burn it. So if something's overly complex, it's mixed media, you're going to be burning plastic, and it's being done in a country where probably that infrastructure is no better than our infrastructure here, if not worse. And I think it just leads to an irresponsible vision of what packaging does and is. And the initial success of this packaging material that's functioning well for its intended purpose is completely tarnished by the idea that it cannot be disposed in a way that doesn't harm people.
I think it's interesting on the flip side too, because they're saying, all over those packages, like if we use the Amazon packages, for example, all over them, they say, oh, recycle this like you would a cardboard box, recycle this. So it's like, it could even be people that are trying their best. Like people, like Michael and I always talk about wish cycling, right? Like people think that something's recyclable. They want it to be, they wish it to be recyclable, and they end up throwing it away or recycling it, but then it, doesn't go anywhere. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not people driving over or flying over or boating over to India and giving them, crap. Nope. It's going through a MRF, as we call them, right? A materials reclamation facility. And supposedly it's been all separated and recycled and then sent and actually internationally shipped to India under all the codes, because you can't just ship garbage, right? You have to pass customs and pass all the manifests and all that kind of HICS codes and all that stuff. And it's not the right stuff, right? So the system is failing it. It's not Emma throwing out the wrong thing.
Nope.
It's her. It's either confusion or it's the system just doesn't work. Obviously, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. So when you guys look at this, your replacement or your material replacement, what you're talking about here, and your simplification, how does that help reduce the waste and really increase recyclability? And not only how does it do it, specifically how you guys are doing it, but also on top of that or next to it, how the hell are you doing it and making money? Because everybody says you can't be sustainable and it costs too much to do this stuff, right? And it's got to be packaging that looks sexy, and therefore you have to use things that can't be recycled in order for it to be good packaging. What's the scoop, man? Give us the secret sauce. What are you guys doing there?
Well, the way we're doing is we kind of getting back to basics. What's the most sustainable principle? Use less of it. And we've developed materials that weigh less than traditional materials. So every time we make a roll stock that's made into a yogurt cup, it's lighter in weight and therefore uses less plastic for every single cup. So for us, it's a very simple principle. We're going to do things sustainably, but by doing that, we're going to reduce the total amount of plastic being used in any process or any format. We do that because we're focusing on the lightest weight plastics that meet the functional requirements of the packaging industry in our market for form, fill, seal cups. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
And it's not really complex. It's choosing a material that has a lot of utility. It's easy to process, but it happens to weigh less than other materials used today. And on top of it, it's recyclable. It's sustainable. It's because it weighs less. You're spending less on that plastic on the front end, but still getting the same amount of cups that you need on the back end.
So the reduce side is also, so what you guys are doing, the reduce side, really, when you talk about reduce, reuse, recycle, right? You got on the reduce side, using less plastics, a different plastic that still meets those. So therefore your cost is actually better, right? Why wouldn't everybody adopt this?
Well, so you have to be able to process, right? So in the industry that I'm focused on, which is, let's call it refrigerated dairy, primarily yogurt and other products like that. Gotcha. That whole industry, the form, fill, seal process was developed around polystyrene, which is sort of a mid-weight material, but isn't recycled today. And in fact, in some areas, it's considered a real problem child in terms of its effect on health and environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So our polypropylene version basically mimics all of the physical properties of polystyrene. So it can be processed on the industry platforms that are used today for polystyrene. Switch to polypropylene, you end up having to make some adjustments to your process, but they're not intrusive adjustments. They're not investments, but it still takes time to validate the process because most of the large companies in the form, fill, seal dairy world are very regimented and are very large, have incredibly robust quality systems. And so we're in the process of qualifying this material with many of those very well-known, very large global dairies.
Let me make sure my brain understands what you just said. Basically, what you're saying is that it's not an intrusive change or an investment change. In other words, you don't have to like throw out your machinery and buy all new good machinery and change all that out. You need to tweak your process and your dials a bit to be able to run this type of plastic through other than another, right? Maybe some heat, maybe some humidity differences, that type of stuff, right?
You got it. Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
So is it challenging? So are you working with the companies directly to figure out how to change those processes, or are you working with like landfills and recycling centers to show them how to recycle your plastics?
Our material is polypropylene. It's we call it XPP. That's a branded version of a specific polypropylene we've developed, and polypropylene is recycled and recyclable today. So I'm less concerned about the recycling infrastructure and more concerned about the customers who process our material into those yogurt cups. So I'm working directly with them to make sure that their process is validated and successful, and that they can continue to meet all of the functional requirements and benefit from the cost savings and the improved sustainability that our material provides them relative to what they have today.
So let's sell some XPP, because this is really, really interesting. Put on your salesman cap or whatever it is, because I was looking on your website at this stuff and it talks about how it's recyclable even in a high barrier form, which I don't even know what the heck that means, high barrier form. I could take a guess, but what is you just spoke a bit about XPP and how it can go through the different forms, non-intrusive changes to your process and all that other kind of stuff, right? But what does a layman need to know about this stuff? What does high barrier form mean in recyclability, even in that form?
So today, high barrier for shelf-stable products, and you mentioned pudding. That's a really good example. Today, large CPGs use polystyrene with a co-extrusion of EVOH, which is a high barrier material providing both oxygen and some moisture protection of the product and from the atmosphere. So our material, our XPP, can be combined with that EVOH at a percentage that's low enough that today MRFs will recycle that material. The problem for the industry, problem for the pudding manufacturers, is that the polystyrene, not the EVOH, the polystyrene is not recycled in the U.S. So
even though it could be, they don't know that it can be, therefore it isn't. Is that what you're saying? Because they'd have to look at every pudding cup and go, well, this is one that Mike made, and this is one that not. Is that part of the issue?
No. The issue on polystyrene is that there's no market for it. There's no value. It costs more to recycle it than it provides a recycler opportunities to sell that recycled content to a company like me. So again, the styrene, you can you can detect the differences between styrene and propylene and other materials through either visual inspection or through water displacement. Can all be chemically recycled. So the recycling infrastructure, is there. It's available, but is the byproduct or the product of recycling of value? Can it be turned into something else easily? Can it be sold to somebody that converts that to something else? And right now, polystyrene isn't recycled. It just doesn't. There isn't a value stream for it. Where polypropylene and my XPP, whether in a monomaterial form or combined with EVOH, is recyclable and recycled today and turned into other products.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So you say that polystyrene has all these issues, and obviously XPP is a great option. Is there anything else like XPP, or is this the holy grail of plastic, so to speak?
Oh no, it's not a holy grail. It serves. It has utility. It's a niche product. There are other products that we manufacture that have are similarly beneficial in terms of solution.
Cool.
PET is a great material that we process a lot of it. We actually process styrene, but it's for applications that require styrene. And those are getting fewer and fewer and further between. So this isn't a be all end all panacea, but polystyrene, there just isn't a market today in the United States for recycling polystyrene, while there is for other materials.
Gotcha. So when you say there's further and further need for that styrene that you guys are producing, in the context of, I guess the question is this: what do you think the future of packaging really holds in your industry in plastics? Is it because of the efforts going towards recycling that styrene is less and less used, and the industry as a whole is moving towards what you guys are doing there, the simplification and really looking for that ability to produce something out there that is easily recycled?
Yeah, absolutely. I think polystyrene, I'm a 39-year veteran of thermoforming and extrusion. I'm not a child.
Right. Gotcha.
but and it's a great material. Polystyrene is fantastic from a processing standpoint, but that's one narrow slice of the entire circularity of packaging materials. There are other materials that are much better in terms of the entire picture, the holistic part of packaging. And I think the trend in the industry is focused on what do we do after the package is used? How can it be recycled? How can it be turned into something with equal or better utility? What comes after? What's the end of life understanding of how to use packaging to benefit society and not degrade the environment? So our take is simplify the material, create the value for the recycler, work with CPGs to encourage consumers to want to recycle that material the way it can be, and just try and move the industry forward without trying to overly complicate the whole process.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those who want to get rid of plastics altogether?
Well, it's kind of interesting with the pandemic. I think we all understood that perhaps plastic, as evil as it is, brings utility. It's necessary.
Yes.
I don't want to go into a surgical environment and get a new hip replacement something that's wrapped in paper, in tissue paper, right? I
Right.
mean, there are
Burlap.
right. I'm not looking to eat, a salad that comes in a paper bag. I mean, there's just some things that uh, plastic does very well, and I think it's so important that we focus on not just the utility of and functionality of plastic, but as an industry to focus on what's done with the plastic after the consumer finishes the product.
Yeah.
And it's so that means it's part of my responsibility as an industry professional to emphasize that better can be done upfront in creating solutions that can then be recycled responsibly or reused in some other format. So, we're
Well,
am I part of the problem? No, I'm part of the solution.
yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of people like.
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
that's what a lot of people get wrong is people don't think about the after of like the after life cycle of whatever plastic they're creating. Even as someone I studied plastic on my master's, I've seen how much pollution's out there. Like theoretically, you can live your whole life believing that plastic is this evil thing, and you want to get to plastic zero. It's super not realistic. And I think that point you made about needing to think about the whole life cycle, that's really the key where a lot of people mess up because people are just thinking about, all right, let me get this product out as cheap as possible that solves a problem for someone, but they're not thinking about the end of life of that plastic. They're not thinking about what's going to happen once it goes into either the recycling bin or the landfill. And it's really important that, we as a society, in my opinion, make these small changes to start thinking about, okay, what happens to this once I'm done with it? Like you never really throw anything away. So what happens once I'm done?
Sure.
And
100% agree. And you started off by asking me my elevator pitch, and
yeah,
I started with I'm a solution provider, and
yeah.
solutions are complex.
Mhm.
Packaging and plastic, sometimes it's complex, but if not done well, that complex product can create a lot of problems.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if done well, if a solution is really holistic, well thought out, and meets all the needs of the community, then we all benefit.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I love the holistic philosophy. We've heard that from many people, which is encouraging in the industry, talking about how they look at what is going to happen to this product once it's done being used at the initial design of it and construction of it, and that's really encouraging to to hear, because I mean our philosophy and what we were trying to get out there to people is the knowledge of what is going on and who the players are and what the industry is doing to solve these issues, because we contend that plastics is not the problem. It's our irresponsible use and disposal of them that is the problem, and we need to change that. And part of that is some infrastructure change. A lot of that is infrastructure change and knowledge change and changing a really lazy consumer base that's been taught to just throw it away and somebody else will deal with the stuff.
Right.
And that's not what, and it's not our response. We go through the whole thing. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that I never knew was out there before was this natural fiber welding, which is a company in Illinois. It's really cool stuff. Chemist, he really intelligent guy, but they're making shoes, all the entire thing, the shoe. I mean, every piece of it is different types of their material that are made completely out of plant based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even interiors of cars and all this other kind of stuff. Is this something that can be used in the CPG world?
So I think that it is. It may not be mature enough yet to meet all of the functional requirements in the markets I play in, but we're in the process of not just evaluating, trialing, trying to develop technology that utilizes plant-based materials and still meets the needs of the CPGs. So I think over time you're going to see that it's adopted at a much higher rate than it is today. But
Yeah.
again, there's a lot of factors. It can be
yeah. There's a totally different thing with putting on a shoe and packaging like pudding or milk or any other dairy like your specialty is, right? I mean, a shoe may function great, but you're not going to put milk in it and put it in a refrigerator.
I guarantee you, the day that a big CPG can utilize a plant-based package and it meets all of their needs in terms of function and requirements and regulations, it'll happen. People want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, it'd be silly not to, right?
Yep.
And you kind of touched on this, I guess, but I just kind of a follow up. What is the future of packaging? What does the future of packaging hold for us? Are we going to see, commitments by brands to go towards these thinner, more sustainable packaging? Are we going to see kind of a transition to different materials? In your opinion, if you were to see the future in your magic crystal ball, what would you think would be the future for? Is it better recycling programs? Is it a shift by brands? Do you have any insight, I guess, on what we could be seeing?
For me, it's multi-tiered, and I do think that brands play a big part of it. I think the governments around the world have to regulate to a certain extent. I also think that producer responsibility is a very key part of the equation. Now, we've talked a little bit, and I don't want to sound like I'm bashing consumers because they've been educated to throw stuff in the garbage. So there's a huge re-education component here. And I'm not sure
Absolutely.
if that comes just from producers or if it comes from CPGs or it comes from the government. Probably all three will have to play a part in changing consumer perceptions. But for me, the future of packaging is to continue down this path towards more sustainable materials, less waste, and more recycling, but in a way where consumers get what they need, get what they want, and people have the ability to make a profit. Profit is not it's not a four-letter word. It's just not. And if we want to tip the scales, if we want to move the needle, we're going to have to create packaging that is profitable for the processors, the CPGs, and easy for the consumers to use and recycle.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. I agree with you. There's got to be that co-opetition, I think, is what Doug Borgsdorf said, and also the collaboration between recyclers and the producers to figure this out, how best to recycle stuff so that people like ICPG can utilize the stuff and bring it back in and what you're producing and understand so that the infrastructure can be tweaked and changed and actually work and have a much bigger impact than we're already having here. Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on here, man. We're going to have you on again and find out what new you guys are doing. But where are people reaching out to you or ICPG? Where are they finding out more about what you guys are doing and how they get in touch with you?
So the best place to find us is icpg.co. That's our website, and sign up for our blog. It's packed full of really good information. We're super active on LinkedIn, and we're about a month from starting our first podcast. So
right on.
Maybe we can collaborate again in slightly different format.
So
no, that'd be awesome to do that. You can go to sustainiacs.com. And like 3/4 of the way down the page, you're going to find all of the people that we talk to, all the companies that are there, and you can get a direct link right to icpg.co right there. And we'll get a link to your podcast and all other kind of stuff up there as well, because we want to spread the word, and anything we can do to co-opetitionate or whatever you want to call it, we'll absolutely do it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any questions, concerns, or topics, anything you guys want to send us out there, just send it to thesustainiacs@gmail.com. I'm Michael Vincent on LinkedIn, also the Sustainiacs on LinkedIn, and Vincent the Dude on Twitter, and Sustainiacs on Twitter. And just look up the Sustainiacs. You'll get me. Emma, where are they reaching you? You can find us. We're out there wherever. Yeah. We're the people who just won't leave. Excellent stuff, Michael. Thank you so much, everybody. We've been the Sustainiacs. Peace and love.
Thank
Bye.
you.